Polyev talks men and women. Somebody asks him, do you support more than two genders? And he said, like, what other genders? Could you name the other genders? And the person is not able to name any other genders. He says transgender, but they kind of shrug it off and move on. Ukraine and biolabs. I think the biolab thing is actually going to come back and maybe bite all these people in the ass. I hope so. That'll be super good. I'll be very happy about that. Amazon is leaving Quebec, and in spectacular fashion. And I thought it was the Trump effect. I said to Justin Trudeau, like, F-A-F-O, right, buddy? And it's not the Trump effect, though. It's a union. It's a union thing. So I guess the Amazon warehouses were going to be unionized, and Amazon was like, no, we're just going to shut it down. Sorry about your luck. Bye, Quebec. So like that. So it was them, F-A-F-O. Anyway, there's lots to get to. Team Canada approach? Not really. The whole thing's collapsing. Scott Moe collapses it. Danielle Smith collapses it further. Danielle Smith is the de facto Prime Minister of Canada right now. She's the only one acting to head off these tariffs. She's just onboarded Scott Moe, and Doug Ford is still a Trudeau bum sniffer acolyte, right? Brown noser. He's not interested. So Team Canada is no more. Scott Moe's like, I could be the 52nd state. We could be the 52nd state. 51st state with Alberta? Okay, I guess so. Sure, why not? Right? We'll take what we can get, says Scott Moe. Can I be the governor, though? Lieutenant governor? So, lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Mark Nixon is highlighting this Scott Moe. And Scott Moe says, listen, guys, what we were talking about then and what we're talking about yesterday, I don't think so. We're not doing these blanket tariffs things. It's not happening. Here's Scott Moe from Saskatchewan saying, no, guys, no. Here we go.
So Saskatchewan is supportive of those very small targeted tariffs that are there to change the minds of U.S. decision makers. What we have seen since last week is some of the language change to broad-based dollar-for-dollar tariffs being counter tariffs being imposed. Saskatchewan's not in support of that. The broad-based counter tariffs are escalating. The entire conversation around tariffs will be hurtful to Canadians and will be hurtful to the entirety of North Americans, and ultimately to that North American energy and food manufacturing security that we want to achieve.
There you go. And here's Doug Ford, I believe, saying, yeah, we've got to do dollar-for-dollar tariffs and Team Canada approach, blah, 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 nonsense. This is the same day. Guys, crazy stuff. Here we go.
We know these tariffs are coming on February 1st. We need to match those tariffs dollar for dollar, tariff for tariff, and make sure that it hurts the Americans as much as it hurts Canadians, because it's going to hurt Canadians right across the board. But we have to come back strong. What we all prefer to build the AMCAN Fortress, I apologize, and ship them more energy, more critical minerals. But we also have to look internally. As I said, we should all be looking in the mirror, and we need to look at internal trade that could pick up the GDP. But I've heard numbers anywhere from $50 to $100 billion. We have to speed up approvals. We're hosting the world's largest mining show, PDAC, just in a little while, and people from all over the world are going to come here. But it's unacceptable. It's taking 10 to 15 years to get things moving. It's unacceptable that the Ring of Fire, the largest find in critical minerals in the world, that is taking years to get approvals. It's unacceptable that we don't have Energy East Pipeline coming out to Ontario and out to New Brunswick. And again, the Northern Gateway going out through BC until we can ship our crude oil around the world. We have to stop being so dependent on the U.S.
This is not how you win a trade war against the United States. Period. Here is Western Standard. Rustad accuses Dave Eby of pushing trade war with U.S. to, quote, hide from his failures. So we've got, and hold on, I've got Danielle Smith as well. Justin Trudeau says, I spoke with the premiers again today. I'm very grateful for their partnership and steadfast commitment to the country right now. Our first goal remains preventing harmful U.S. tariffs, but Team Canada is ready with a strong national response if we need one. It sure doesn't sound like it. It sure doesn't. And these clips are all very, very recent, right? Like, these clips and news articles are from the last day or so. I try and keep all my stuff pretty new and fresh. And if I go back, it's just to show you how crazy things were last week and how much more crazy they are this week. And the fact that Justin Trudeau is saying, oh, Team Canada approach, everybody, don't you know that we're going to do a Team Canada approach and it's going to be amazing? I don't believe it. I don't think I believe it. I don't think I believe it whatsoever. Here's Danielle Smith being one of the adults in the room. And she says, it took time between meetings with U.S. senators and House members today to speak with my premier colleagues and prime minister about the ongoing threat of U.S. tariffs. Again, this is yesterday at 3:20 p.m., January 22nd. And she says, in my view, the direction of the discussion was more positive this week, except for Doug Ford. As there appears to be a growing consensus, though not entirely unanimous, on the following points. One, the need to visibly demonstrate our nation's commitment to tighter border security and to accelerate our 2% GDP NATO commitment. Two, the importance of building more oil and gas pipelines east and west within our country to diversify our customer base, removing interprovincial trade barriers and increasing Canada's competitiveness. Three, the necessity of consulting with and securing consent from individual provinces before cutting off or placing export tariffs on key exports from these provinces. Alberta will continue to oppose any such extreme measures on our energy exports. A general agreement on the need to focus more on constructive, proactive diplomacy with U.S. lawmakers rather than escalating rhetoric. While more discussion is needed, the group is moving closer to a consensus on how to handle the U.S. tariff challenge. So we're not talking about cutting off their energy, and hopefully they won't put the 25% tariff on us. I think they're putting the 25% tariff on us. I hope I'm wrong. Like I hope that it really does remove the waste in the government, and the waste is Justin Trudeau, all of these people who are not listening, Doug Ford even. Why doesn't Ontario have a real Conservative Party that's making moves right now? Have a weekly rally, couple of rallies a week, have a couple of businesses on board, like big businesses, maybe Linamar-sized businesses, Hitachi, that kind of stuff, right? These are just businesses that are in Guelph that I'm thinking, but that kind of size, like Linamar's a big business. Hitachi's big business too. Like it's a global business. So if you could get one or two of those businesses in Ontario on board with your leadership and then basically mirror Trump rhetoric, do you think that'll work? Do you think people, I think it would be popular, but I think the press and the government, Doug Ford and federal, would crack down and say like, no, you can't say these things. This is Trumpian and, American politics in Canada and blah, 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 all this crap. But fundamentally, I think the policies of Donald Trump are very popular. And I think that they would resonate up here. We just don't have anybody mouthing them. And the only conservative we have is not conservative at all, like the opposite of conservative, right? So it's Doug Ford. He's a liberal. Anyway, Justin Trudeau is trying to do what Danielle Smith was saying and show Canada's border plan. And again, I was talking about this yesterday. I showed this yesterday. If you have Black Hawk helicopters patrolling your border, but at the same time, you import people who hate America from Gaza, and you give them $3,000 and say, the border's that way, and just don't let us know where you're going. Okay, we don't want to see you going across the border there. That'd be really bad. See you guys later. Here's your $3,000. You're not making a credible argument that you're actually doing something. You're just not. I'm sorry. You're not. If the borders are open and you say, come on in, anybody who wants to be a Khalistani terrorist, come on in, anybody who wants to free Palestine, come on in, everybody who wants to start foreign wars in Canada, come on in, Ukrainians, and let's have a war with Russians. Like, if you do all of that, you're signaling that your borders are open, and those people, those Khalistani terrorists, those Islamic terrorists, I didn't mention Islam, but that was implied, can all just get over that leaky border. They get jobs as truck drivers. They bring drugs into the United States. They don't care if they have a criminal record in Canada because they'll just get deported back to India, and they don't care, or whatever Middle Eastern country they're from, and they don't care. That's the problem that is being ignored. That's the problem. And they pretend to not know this. I'm a schmo in my garage, and I know this. They should damn well know this. Doug Ford knows this, but he's ignoring it. It's China. It's China. Bullshit, Doug. Bullshit. Right? So anyway, Justin Trudeau is trying to show that our border plan is working and it's cutting down on all of these problems. It's not. He looks like an idiot, and it looks like he doesn't understand the ask. Or he's purposely trying to show and trying to be sneaky. Like you ask your kid to clean their room and they throw it all in the closet. And they know they put it in the closet, and you know they put it in the closet. You're being sneaky, right? And I know you're being sneaky. That's what's happening right now. Trump walks in and he says, I can see your closet, you moron. That's it, right? And so that's what's happening. So here's Jagmeet Singh. He says, you know what we should do? Minerals. We should cut off the United States with minerals. And then the United States will say, okay, Canada, we're just going to economically destroy you morons. Bye.
So now that Donald Trump has taken office, he has again reiterated the threat of tariffs against Canada. We do not want this trade war. We are great neighbors with the U.S. Those are our friends. And in Canada, we take care.
In Canada, by great neighbors, we mean we will import drugs and criminals and send them over the border. And if you call us on it, we will saber rattle like there's no tomorrow with no leverage whatsoever. And then if you harm us, we'll claim victimhood. Oh, you hurt us, you hurt us. Like the little brother, right? You get to hit, Mom, he hit me. It is our fault. Jagmeet Singh, we are not good neighbors. We are not doing the right things that good neighbors should do. If we were, we wouldn't be in this situation. And your speech here doesn't acknowledge any of that reality.
Do not want this trade war.
I think he does want this trade war.
We are great neighbors with the U.S. These are our friends. And in Canada, we take care of our neighbors. We look out for one another. But do not take our kindness for weakness. Donald Trump is a bully who understands one thing, that is strength. So we have to show strength and be ready to fight back. We've heard from Daniel Smith, who is taking tools off the table, which is the wrong approach. We need to have every tool on the table to fight back against Donald Trump. And now we're hearing from François Blanchet, who's also saying let's not use hydroelectricity in Quebec. That's not the right approach. We need to use every tool possible to fight back, to stop these tariffs before they happen. I've suggested let's stop the flow of critical minerals. We know this is going to hit Donald Trump's billionaire buddy Elon Musk directly accounts because he relies on those critical minerals for the batteries for his cars, for the Tesla cars. So let's continue with that. That's a direct attack to stop the tariffs before they happen.
And very NDP. We have to preemptively strike Elon Musk.
I've said
Get
it
the
before
nukes.
and I say it again. Donald Trump only understands strength. We need to show strength. I'm ready to fight back.
Honestly, I think that Jagmeet Singh and Elon Musk should have a cage match. And then the winner of that match goes on to fight Mark Zuckerberg. And the winner of that match goes on to fight Joe Rogan. We'll do a bracket. It'll be great. It'll be like March Madness. Ross McKittrick says, I posted this in November. Some people argued that I'm wrong because there's almost no fentanyl going from Canada to the United States. Great, but that's not what Washington, D.C. thinks. Instead of syrupy Ontario ads about trade relationships, we should have launched a new effort to stop fentanyl production, illegal immigration, and human trafficking, then run ads about those. So fundamentally, when Ontario doesn't understand, and what's going on is there's criminal organizations who have taken over trucking. They've been approached by people, maybe Chinese, who knows, who want to facilitate a network that produces fentanyl, puts it in trucks, and gets it across the border with foreign drivers. Okay? Why foreign drivers? The same reason that drug runners use children. Small jail time, anonymity, and ultimately no consequences, right? Like, oh man, you were arrested and now you've got a trial date, and now Parminder Singh or whatever his name is, or Muhammad doesn't exist anymore. He's flying back to Canada, back to wherever he's from, and bingo, bango, bongo, you've got a new run, right? Like you've just changed different driver, different everything, and no suspicion, right? Maybe even the same truck. Like, do they impound the trucks all the time? I'll come and get the truck, right, from my arrested driver. So I'm concerned that they don't even know what the scam is. Like sometimes, if I run e-commerce and things like that, and sometimes you get scams, and it's like you try and understand the scam from the scammer's point of view, and it's like, well, how is this a scam? Like how are they benefiting from this? And it's like I can see it so clearly, and it's almost obvious to me that Doug Ford and all of these people either haven't thought about it at all or don't see it. They don't want to talk about it, that's for darn sure. Ross McKittrick says, I was at a policy convention. This is back in November of 24. I was at a policy convention in September at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington, D.C., and had a chance to ask a well-connected former State Department official if Washington thinks of fentanyl primarily as a Mexico problem or a China problem. He said, it's a Canada problem. Ford and the others can get all weepy about the threat of tariffs when we're such great friends and allies, etc. But they better read the room because it'll get worse from here if they don't fix this. Welcome to worse from here. And if Doug Ford still doesn't even understand the problem, and that's a huge problem, right? Like that's a huge problem because it's like walking in to your room. Same analogy from earlier. Donald Trump has said to tiny Doug Ford, I see your closet there, bud. Clean it up. And Doug Ford says, I don't know what you're talking about. And Donald Trump walks out of the room because he's told you the problem and he's not letting you leave until you solve it. And sorry about July. If that destroys your economy, well, I guess you deserve to have your economy destroyed. I don't want the economy destroyed, but Doug Ford seems like an idiot. Tom Quiggin says, according to the annual report of the LCBO in Ontario, about $866 million worth of sales were from U.S. suppliers. This is out of total sales of about $7.4 billion. In other words, Doug Ford's idea of taking U.S. alcohol off the shelves of the LCBO is a meaningless threat that would do little to damage America. Yeah, it would be a footnote, right? Like Canada, Ontario is a small state. It would be like Maine saying, no, we don't want your alcohol. It's like, oh, okay. Sure. I guess. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change. And targeting Kentucky bourbon is not going to change Donald Trump's mind, I don't think. He'll find another. He'll allow the bourbon place to export to 4 or 5 new places that have double or triple the population of Ontario. And then they're going to say, oh man, I can't believe how much richer we are. Yay, who needs Canada? Unfortunately, right? It's like the postal strike writ large. CBC Watcher is highlighting this video, and it's very interesting. It's 2.5 minutes. I'll show you the beginning and I'll show you the ending. The beginning is interesting because the woman basically says this is a failure of leadership squarely at the feet of Trudeau. And then this guy tries to kind of sanitize it all. Here we go.
Analysis, what's your thoughts there?
It is, my God, if we're talking about political ambitions, we should be talking about Justin Trudeau, not talking about Pierre Poilievre. It is not incumbent on the leader of the opposition to table what Canada's plan for tariffs and a retaliatory response should be. That is the duty of the Prime Minister of Canada. Unfortunately, he abdicated the responsibility and the leadership role because he couldn't see past his own ego, and he has forced Canada into inward navel-gazing political drama as opposed to actually coming up with a plan. I think the issue right now, David, is not what Pierre Poilievre thinks about retaliatory tariffs. It's that there's too many people saying what they think retaliatory tariffs should be. There's no clear negotiator for Canada right now, and that is the fault of the Prime Minister, not Pierre Poilievre.
Well, look, I wasn't asking Michelle for that clarity to put anything on Pierre Poilievre just to make sure I hadn't missed something, because I thought he was like, yeah, we need a robust response, but he had no clear position yet on what to do about oil. He says he's not the Prime Minister. He doesn't need a position. Neither is Daniel Smith. Neither is Doug Ford. Politicians are weighing in. So I wonder, Kate, your thoughts.
I'm just going to fast forward to the end part here because she finishes and then he wraps up. And I think what he's saying, I'll tell you after.
Table border legislation. It was something that the parties prior to this point all said that they would support. It was the government that chose to put that on hiatus with prorogation. So recall Parliament, pass border measures, and then have a substantive conversation about tariffs. But unless and until that is fixed, we can't expect to see much action. And basically Donald Trump has said that, but the Liberals have acknowledged that as well.
Well, he has said, Francois, like he said initially, the border was the issue with fentanyl and migrants. Now, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that it's really just about forcing an earlier negotiation of NAFTA. And then he has also said it's other things. They're abusing the rules. They're abusing that. I mean, Trump says many things, and it is absolutely unclear if any of them last beyond the moment.
What an unbelievably stupid thing to say. This person has obviously not been paying any attention to Trump. He hasn't listened to what Trump has said. Trump has said very clearly it has nothing to do with the USMCA. NAFTA doesn't exist anymore. It was renegotiated years ago by Chrystia Freeland and now called the USMCA or CUSMA if you're Canada, which is dumb. Anyway, all of that said, it's interesting that he completely dismisses Donald Trump and tries to make the case that it's not about what Donald Trump is saying, fentanyl and invasions. It's actually about renegotiating the USMCA. Because, you know, all the things that Donald Trump talks about are very transient. It doesn't last. Bullshit. Like, he's still talking the same as he was in 2016. So, bullshit. Like, what absolute bullshit. Andy Lee says Premier Smith has been single-handedly putting Canada on the map while Trudeau was hiding and talking about ketchup from the luxurious Fairmont-le-Château Montebello. Canada is back. So Danielle Smith says the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the largest business organization in the world, representing over 3 billion businesses of all sizes. It plays a crucial role in shaping policies that drive economic growth and strengthen cross-border relationships. Today, I had the honor of meeting with leaders from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to advocate for even stronger trade ties with Alberta and Canada to benefit workers on both sides of the border. What do you think about 51st State, guys, eh? Meljo Lee says, congratulations on your confirmation as the United States Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. I look forward to working together on our diplomatic and trade relationship as well as advance our two countries' shared priorities, including through Canada's chairship of the G7. And Karine says, I'll just leave this here. And it's the USMCA agreement right at the top. It says the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement, USMCA, aims to promote free trade and economic cooperation among the three nations. However, organized crime and border security breaches can compromise the agreement's effectiveness and lead to the imposition of tariffs. And it says imposing tariffs. In the event of a breach, the USMCA allows for the imposition of tariffs on goods originating from the non-compliant party. For example, if Mexico fails to effectively address drug trafficking and border security issues, the United States could impose tariffs on Mexican goods entering the United States market. Similarly, if Canada fails to meet its obligations, the U.S. could impose tariffs on Canadian goods. This is what's called a warning. And Chrystia Freeland, the reason it's called CUSMA in Canada and USMCA everywhere else is because Donald Trump originally had Canada first, or Canada after the United States. And I can't remember what the acronym was because it was an acronym and it sounded fine. And Trump used it a bunch of times. And then he got pissed off by Chrystia Freeland being an idiot. And he said, you know what, we're going to put Canada last in the USMCA and we're going to call it the USMCA. And he's like, that's what we like. And they knew when they renegotiated NAFTA into the USMCA that tariffs were possible if they didn't secure the border and stop the drugs being trafficked. And all they did was open up the border more. They wanted him to bring tariffs. They did. That's what they did to bring the tariffs. The whole plan was to do this. Danielle Smith says, thank you, Montana Senator Steve Daines, for an excellent conversation about our shared borders and the energy opportunities between Canada and the U.S. Senator Daines and Montana are great friends to Alberta and Canada. So there you go. There's tariffs. And so still no clear path out. And it seems like Danielle Smith is leading the way for the proper response. We'll see how it all goes. I have no idea. Doug Ford could be the fly in the ointment here. Let's talk about money and misappropriation of tax dollars. Ryan says, how bad are grocery prices under the Liberals and the NDP? The Kingston Liberal member, Mark Garrettson, just had his municipality declare a state of emergency because of poverty, carbon taxes, high taxes, and the out-of-control standard of living under this government has reached record lows, and a trade war will only further fuel this nightmare. We need a carbon tax election now. And the municipalities, somebody was saying in the responses here somewhere that basically the municipalities get money unlocked and flexibility when they declare a state of emergency. So it's not obvious. It's not obvious is not the right word, but it's not just having the state of emergency isn't quite enough. It's not a hole in one. It's not a sure thing. I think that sure, there's problems, there's issues, but I would be interested to see how much self-inflicted wounds that they're doing on themselves in Kingston and find out where a lot of the money is going. Like, I'd love an audit when they call emergency and basically they want more money. I think that should open up a look at their books. How much are they paying for DEI initiatives? How much are they paying for all that stuff? Could all of that money be used for helping their citizens rather than doubling and tripling down on DEI? Fundamentally, I think they create problems and then use the problems themselves to justify the emergency declaration, which unlocks more money, and they use that money until they use it they reroute it to private interests, et cetera, et cetera. And I think there are a whole bunch of examples of corruption across all of the government, corrupt spending and so on and so forth. And then when they run out, they say, oh no, it's an emergency. Look at all these poor, hungry people. Meanwhile, when they had money, they didn't do anything about the poor, hungry people, right? And so I think it's a scam. And it's very, very convenient politically. Like, it's a really convenient political thing to use. Like, it's embarrassing for the Liberals to call an emergency, or it's an embarrassing thing for the municipality to call an emergency, so on and so forth. And then that's political hay for political parties to say, see, there's this emergency in your riding, and aren't you terrible, and so on and so forth. But it doesn't actually, again, address the misuse of funds. It doesn't address the corruption. It doesn't address anything. It's very surface. You know what I mean? Like, oh, look, they don't have any money. There's an emergency and people are starving. But it's like, I think it's actually a corruption problem, really. Ultimately, when you look at it, that's fundamentally what I think is going on. House of Commons staffer says Stellantis moving 1,500 jobs from Canada to the United States. Did we get our $15 billion back, Mr. Champagne? So this is a news broadcast talking about how they're going to make the Dodge Durango in the United States. And people are like, oh, is that going to be an electric car? And yeah, Canada is going to be stuck holding the bag with all of this money that we've wasted on batteries that now nobody's going to buy because
Stellantis Investments returns 1,500 jobs to their Illinois plant. They're going to produce their new midsize pickup in Illinois, and they're going to build their next gen Dodge Durango at their Detroit complex.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what the next-gen Dodge Durango looks like. Is that electrified? Is it a hybrid? Hopefully the latter
we know that
for
the Trump administration
investors in Stellantis.
On EVs.
No, and consumers really not that hot on EVs either.
Very true.
It's interesting to see Olaf Scholz in Germany wants to really push ahead, obviously because they've invested, Volkswagen, Daimler, and BMW so much in electrification. But yeah, this is interesting. You know, they're also pulling their production down from Canada into the U.S., Illinois, Ohio, and Michigan.
Stellantis.
Shocked, I tell you. That's shocking news. FAFO, man. That's it. Like, honestly, it's one of those things. Here's an example of that corruption that I was talking about. Holly Doan says court challenges program since 2017 spent $24.9 million, but never disclosed who received the funding or why. Managers did not reply to Blacklock's questions. So this is the federal government paying interveners to take sides in Supreme Court cases using NGOs and all this funding. The practice should be outlawed. And I believe it was outlawed under Harper and it was brought back by Justin Trudeau. So these kind of things where tax dollars are used to influence court cases, it's a banana republic kind of thing to do. Like, what an affront to reality, honestly. Holly Doan says transparency in federal spending has reached a new low, says the PBO director. Did I say Chrystia Freeland? Holly Doan's reporting this. PBODP, I don't know who this is. The federal government's ability or willingness to produce high-quality, timely financial statements continues to deteriorate. So Blacklock's reporter is writing an article about this. So they're insiders. I don't know exactly which office this is, so apologies about that. But it's interesting. I'm not surprised, again, that the financial transparency and accountability is near zero because it seems like they're stealing our money and they're pretty happy about it. Like, they don't seem upset about it at all. Everybody seems like, yes, we're going to steal your money. It's for your safety, comrade. So, reminds me of that part in The Dark Knight where the Joker says, if there's a plan, even if the plan's horrific, so long as there's a plan, people are okay with it, right? Like, these people are going to go and they're going to kill all these civilians here. Oh, okay, well, so long as there's a plan, right? Iraq, Desert Storm, so on and so forth. Gov.exe says online retail giant Amazon says they are ceasing their operations in Quebec, affecting nearly 2,000 full-time and temporary workers. They also say the decision has nothing to do with recent talks of unionization. I don't think that's accurate, but what are you going to do, right? And so Amazon is leaving Quebec, and it's, I guess, pretty quick. CBC News says Amazon has announced it will shutter its facilities in Quebec in the coming weeks and cut more than 1,700 jobs. Quebec is home to Amazon's only unionized workforce in Canada. See you later, Amazon Union. Francois Champagne says, spoke to the head of Amazon Canada. I expressed our dismay and frustration after learning in the news that they intend to let go of 1,700 employees and close all 7 of their warehouses in Quebec. This is not the way business is done in Canada. Kirk says, did he explain to you with crayons that businesses don't want to be strong-armed by unions? There's many situations. I've been a union steward. I've been in many unions. They're kind of attached to companies that get government funding. It's weird, right? Super duper weird. But anyway, I've been in lots of unions. I've negotiated union contracts, and the unions are there to enrich themselves, but they become like another layer of management. And like, I don't object at all to Amazon doing what they've done. That's one way to get rid of a union. You close down the store and then you open it again under a different name, and then you don't hire those union people, right? But I'm not surprised by Amazon doing this. It's interesting that I think that unions have outlived their usefulness. They've become political entities now, and like management, they didn't protect the citizens, the union members from jab mandates. Nobody did, right? And like, least of all the unions, and the unions should have. You can't initiate a policy like a jab mandate, which is, I think, illegal anyway, despite what they said. You can't do that outside of a union contract, and they did. And like, the union should have stopped that, and they didn't. And that's writ large, everybody. Like, I don't think there's one union. If you know of a union that stood up for their people and didn't allow jab mandates to fire people and things like that, you let me know, because I haven't seen one. I haven't even seen one. So like, that's how terrible. If you think unions are going to fight for you, that's it. That's your statistic. They're not. Don't pay. Just say, I'm not going to give my funds to the union. I want to donate it to a charity or keep it on my paycheck. So I used to be a union guy. I'm not anymore. Anyway, Anthony Koch is responding to Chrystia Freeland, and Freeland's responding to the Amazon thing. She says, I fought to implement the digital services tax because big tech must be held accountable. I will fight for jobs, workers' rights, and investment in Quebec and across Canada. It's no wonder Amazon ran screaming from Canada. Anthony Koch says, major company leaves Quebec. Chrystia Freeland, this is why we need to tax companies even more. Get it, everybody? Right? Like, nobody wants to run their company like that. And so if they say, listen, I'm going to get 25% tariffs if I stay in Canada, or if I move my company to the United States, bye-bye tariffs and also bye-bye taxes. I mean, I already liked it. You didn't have to sell me on it, right? Like, unbelievable stuff. I lost this tab earlier today. I had to go and find it again. I think my mouse is dying, so it unclicked halfway through me moving it to where it was supposed to be. So we already talked about that one. This is a Liberal leader, and he sticks his tongue out far too much. I noticed it. I was watching the speech, and it's like 39 minutes, and I'm 7 minutes in. And sorry, he's got his tongue out there. And I was like, why? Why is he doing this? He was like, and I mean, like, you got to wet your lips. Like, sometimes I wet my lips, and I don't think you notice. I don't think my audience notices. But this man, I was like, why? What are you doing? What are you doing? The first time I saw him, I was like, oh, that's probably me imagining things. And I was like, oh no, it's not. He talks here about how the Liberals should return to the center, and I'll just play a little bit of it. I don't think he's going to win. I don't know where he got his $350,000 to enter this race, but I'm telling you right now, he's not going to win it. So here we go.
If we're trying to recapture our identity and coming up with a new identity, I think it starts by going back to our roots and our heritage. Western civilization in general was founded on Christian principles, and that we have an amazing heritage in this country of being grounded in biblical principles and Christian principles. When I travel to Ottawa and I see the Parliament buildings, in the past, we engraved many scriptures on the walls of this country. And because of that, we have been a prosperous nation, I believe. And the entire Western civilization has prospered because we have put God first in our country.
So while you may agree and you may think that this is a good part of the speech, do you think that the current Liberal Party is going to vote for this person to be their leader? Okay. He talks about being centrist, and he talks PPC, and in the first 7 minutes, he says that he appreciates what the PPC has to offer. They have good ideas. He says he appreciates what the NDP has to offer. Free dental care is a great idea. He says, but the Liberals should be in the center, doing all of it. And I was like, man, you're not going to win. So he's not going to win, but there's a Liberal candidate who, wants to be the leader, and there he is. Chrystia Freeland is in the race, and she says, it's official. I've submitted my nomination papers to be the next leader of the Liberal Party of Canada and Prime Minister. I'm in this fight for you, for Canada. Join the fight, sign up to vote. So there you go. And here's Pierre Poilievre. He says, Freeland versus Freeland. She says that she was wrong again. Wrong on the carbon tax, wrong on the capital gains tax, wrong on their GST gimmick. Her slogan should be, I'm Chrystia, and I was wrong about everything. Sign to join common sense conservatives who oppose this tax hike. Everybody who signs up to these things is signing up to receive fundraising emails from these political parties. They say, the only way we can fight is if you give me money. Thank you for giving me money. So I understand why they do it. There's got to be a better way to do politics. You could sell a meme coin, right? You could dance in an interesting way. Joe, I don't recommend that, though. Joe Warmington says, we've set up a $15 billion government fund to help Canada with green economy. Chrystia Freeland told the WEF a year ago in Davos at the 23-minute mark. He's got receipts. In December 24, there are news stories of a Canada Growth Fund mentioned in the fall economic statement that led to Justin Trudeau announcing departure announcing departure that said Canada pension funds could be used to put in $2 for each dollar from Ottawa for green and AI projects. Is this a prudent use of pension money? Perhaps something to ask Ms. Freeland and Mr. Carney about in the Liberal leadership. I don't want to pay any attention to them as little attention as possible. They're corrupt and they're liars, and I don't think the Liberals. I don't think anybody would pay any attention to them whatsoever if we were in an election right now and they were flailing about like they are. Nobody would pay attention because nobody would be voting for them because they're a mess. They're a mess. And they're still a mess, right? So Brian Lilly says, word on the street is that Mark Carney wants to distance himself from the carbon tax. Stephen Guilbeault, a radical environmentalist Brian Lilly met more than 20 years ago, chained to a gas pump to stop people from filling up, says he's been briefed on Carney's plan and he likes it. Still feel okay? So here's the exchange between Guilbeault and the CTV Power and Politics host.
What he's going to do? Have you been briefed on the specifics of his plan? And do you think it can be an effective replacement for the consumer carbon tax?
The short answer to your question is yes. I have spoken with him, and I'm confident that by working together with other members of the Liberal caucus and membership, we can come up with a plan that will ensure that Canada achieves its climate goals. And again, he's incredibly knowledgeable. I have great respect for everything he's done, but also his vision and understanding of this issue, which really very few people in the world can say they've done as much as he has and understand this issue.
You know what?
Wow. Delusional. Mark Carney is Guilbeault's trying to pump him up and say, oh, he's so good and so good. All of his DEI initiatives, all of the climate initiatives in the banking sector are collapsing right now. Oh, there's nobody who's done as much as he has. Get bent. See you later, buddy. Michael Barrett says, radical Liberal environment minister exposed. Stephen Guilbeault endorses Mark Carney and lets it slip that they want to keep the carbon tax. Don't be fooled. They're just like Justin. That's weak. Michelle Ferrari, who's an MP, says, this is nuts. Don't ever forget that Ms. Freeland, Mr. Carney, Karina Gould, Justin Trudeau, and every other Liberal and NDP voted for this insane carbon tax over and over and over again. Northern Hexagon says, $2,800 bill for my restaurant, $1,000 carbon tax, $325 in HST. Insane. And it's anti-business, these policies. They do nothing but harm our productivity. Andy Lee says Mark Carney is promoted by Canada's Snow Goose Media, which was founded in Canada in 2019, yet it maintains an official account with an IP address showing it's operating in Sichuan, China. The regime has found its next Manchurian candidate, and it's Mark Carney. Please clap, right? Here is Chrystia Freeland again, and True North is reporting Chrystia Freeland defends her flip-flop on the carbon tax, citing Canadians' concerns and inspiration from Premier Wab Kinew. I don't want to listen to anything she has to say, really, but they're all trying to... they're talking out both sides of their mouths. On one side of their mouth, they're saying no more carbon tax. Everybody hates the carbon tax. On the other side, they're saying we're going to replace it with something that that they don't hate, and that's not possible because these people are lying scoundrels. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful